Adventure of the Wanderers, a Levihan fanfic, by me. The sun was overhead, and the heat was sweltering to the point that if I didn't have boots on my feet, I might have fried. I lounged about in the shade against the wall in order to protect myself from being burned by the sun. I took advantage of Levi being gone and napped. "Get up, you good-for-nothing," Levi said, kicking the sole of my leather boot. "But I just sat down," I whined, opening my eyes and squinting up at the slightly blurry short man. "Don't tell me we got another job already." "We do. Now get up, so we can get going about doing it." I knew I wasn't going to escape this job, even if I wanted to. So I got up and started to follow. What option did I really have? He was my best bet for survival. I know I could try to do things on my own, but it was easier when we worked together to get the things we needed. Besides, I liked the guy way too much to abandon him. When we were 6, we took each other in after we lost our families. His uncle abandoned him, and my parents died in a fire. What can I say? Living as next-door neighbors really does build strong bonds in this part of the world, especially when the tax collectors came. Levi was my servant before I started living on the streets with him. He told me years later that it was really the tax collectors who set the fire and left me an orphan that night. He had come back from butchering a chicken to find my home ablaze. I'm grateful to Levi for delaying me at the river, where I was playing with my dog. He saved my life that day. He has been my source of comfort and my partner ever since. "What are we going to steal this time?" I asked as I stride even with him. "I'll explain as soon as we get home," he said, referring to the place where we were staying for a couple of days. "Is it that big of a job that you're unable to tell me right now?" "Yes, be patient, Han," he told me, looking up at me with his piercing gray eyes. I wasn't, and never will be, afraid of those eyes that guided me through all of our thefts. I trusted his eyes because mine couldn't see the way his could. And he relies on my strategies, which is probably why we make a good team. We finally reached the door to our temporary living quarters and entered into a roughly built shelter that seems to have been hit with just as bad times as the grubby, dirty people that lived in it. "So, are you going to tell me what we are going to steal now?" "Here is as good as a place as any other," he said as he sat down on the ground, and I followed suit. "We have a job from Lord Nile to steal the royal jewels." "Why would he want us to steal the royal jewels?" "I don't know. All his servant said was that he'd pay us handsomely," he whispered back as he looked around to make sure we hadn't caused a commotion. "Han, we have to do this." "I know, I want to know if he had any motive behind having us steal the jewels. Perhaps he just wants to see if we can actually steal something as important as the royal jewels and escape the castle. That could be possible. Either way, we have to come up with a plan for tonight. After a homecoming party of a king and queen, Lord Nile said that the jewels will be moved into the city with their majesties. "He gave us such short notice?" I said rapidly. "I don't know if I can work that fast. I'm on coming up with a plan. There's so much to plan for, and he gives us maybe 5 hours to pull this job off. His cool hair swept into his eyes as he leaned in and kissed my forehead to soothe me. He pulled my brown hair out of my ponytail and started combing through it with his fingers. You're worrying too much, Han. I know you can pull the theft in a matter of minutes if you let your mind relax. I only make it seem like it's that easy, I replied, turning around so he could get my hair better. I think we should be able to sneak into the castle as servants. You really do need to take better care of your hair if we're going to sneak in among them. Even the servants take better care of their hair than you do. Besides, we aren't going as servants. I'm glad that I have you to fix my hair. I know you can make it look like a proper royal's. I sometimes miss having servants for everything. I heard Levi sigh before he replied, It's a good thing that you still have me. I have a lot of work to do before you're ready. But luckily, Lord Niall gave us clothes fit for the royal homecoming party, as well as invitations. You never said we were invited, I exclaimed. You didn't give me time to, he replied, pulling my hair as he hit a stubborn knot. That's why you can relax. Leave the entrance plans to me. The rest is all yours. Thought about what our plan for obtaining the jewels would be. Levi made sure that there was enough water and soap for both of us to bathe. I'm going to let you bathe first, Levi said as he came in with the bucket of water and placed it on top of the fire that he had started only a few minutes before. You certainly need it more than I do. You look like you've been rolling around in the dirt. Can't we take one at the same time? That way we can get each other's backs, I replied, feeling my cheeks flush. You make a fair point. It would be easier. Plus, you probably would never get your hair cleaned enough to pass off as a guest to a royal ball, he said. Either he didn't pick up on how flustered I was, or completely ignored it in favor of being a practical request. Never in my whole life had I felt more humiliated. Here I was, making a suggestion that we bathe together, when we hadn't bathed at the same time since we hit puberty about 10 years ago. And here he was, pretending like it was the most natural thing to suggest in the world. He confused me. Did he honestly not know that I liked him as more than a friend? Getting ready went over smoothly on Levi's part, but as he got me ready, he twisted my hair in ways I didn't know that they could go, and bathing with him didn't go as badly as I thought it might. I have to say that the end result impressed me because I ended up looking like a lady. I was born to be for once in my life. I never realized how beautiful you are, he muttered as he took a look at what he had done. I could feel the blush that spread across my face, and I turned toward the door to hide my face. He had never complimented me like that before. Never had I seen such a look in his eye, nor seen him smile so bright. I don't even think he had smiled that way as a child. And you look quite handsome. I tried to pull myself together as I went over the plan for tonight in my head. Don't worry, Levi said as if he were reading my mind, as he slipped my hand into his. I'll be your eyes, as I have always been. You and her, she was my eyes at one point too. I know. I'm sorry she got sick. Got to the gates of the palace. We were ushered in without a problem. They called us by fake names on the invitation. Presenting Lord Louis Garrett and Hannah Michaels. We entered the ballroom. I had never seen a room so vast as this one. It was full of commotion and colors of every kind. I fit in with my dark blue dress, but I didn't feel like I belonged in this world of finery anymore. I belonged to the streets. "I believe a dance is in order, my lady," he said, spinning me slowly. "We should enjoy ourselves a little bit." I just wanted to get the job over and done with. But I knew he was right, and that we should take our time. This might be the only chance that we would be in the palace. We ended up dancing for half the night, and watched as the king and queen entered the ballroom and began to dance. I watched the ladies in colorful dresses spinning all around me in a waltz with their gentlemen. It reminded me of the dancing lessons as a child. I remember that I had a ginger-haired friend who used to dance with me. Looking at the queen, I realized that she had the same color of hair. I shrugged the thought off. My friend had died after she had taken ill. I nodded. It was time to get the job done and get out of here. The sooner I could get those shoes off, the better. They weren't nearly as comfortable as my boots. "Do you think they'll notice if we went missing?" "There's no chance that they will with your plan," he whispered back and kissed my hand. "I'll see you in a bit, my lady." "Whatever you do, make sure you stick to the right. And please try not to kill anyone." "I know," he hissed. Levi disappeared in the crowd of dancers as I moved off to the opposite direction toward a dark corner. I kept my head down and made eye contact with no one. As I slipped into the hallway that led toward the royal chambers, I ducked into the royal chambers of the queen and was surprised with the splendor of the room. The room was almost completely the color of violets, and I saw a couple of fur-lined cloaks hanging over a chair. The room smelled of roses. I shook my head and focused myself. As I scanned the room, I spotted jewels sitting on the table in front of the mirror. This was going to be easy. There's a beautiful necklace that has diamonds and sapphires and a gold chain. I gently picked it up and put it on. It was then that I first caught my whole reflection. It captivated me for a while. Levi really did a good job making me look like a proper lady of court. I noticed how the necklace glinted gently around my neck. I never wore something as fancy as this. But I remember my mother had. "Focus," I hissed to myself as I pick up the rest of the jewels and start to stow them away in my dress. Shining greens, dazzling blues, sparkling reds, and blinding whites all disappeared into my dress. The door opened while I was working, and naturally, I thought it was Levi who had finally shown up to help me with the job. So I didn't even look up as the person who entered the room approached me. "Are you trying to steal from your queen?" a woman asked, in a voice that was much sweeter than I expected to be. I looked up, finding the queen herself standing there, looking over me, and I stopped. What was I doing? And I backed up into the table. For the first time in my life, I had been caught in the act of stealing. I managed to get out before I fell silent. "You're working with the short fellow, with those steel-colored eyes," she said. "We caught him trying to head this way. He seems rather frustrated at being caught. He even knocked out a few guards. The guards wanted to search my chambers to make sure it was safe, but I told them not to because I wanted to deal with you myself." I slowly took the jewels out from where I was hiding them in my dress and placed them back on the table, then fastened the necklace and placed it on top of the rest. The queen smiled softly at this and seemed to suppress a giggle. "I assumed that you were only doing it out of necessity to get money from someone." "How did you know?" I asked her. "You two are not the first thieves to go after my royal jewels this month, though the pair of you seem to be the most famous on the streets recently. Your partner is Levi, But you were harder to place since you tend to dress more like a man. Han. Or should I call you Hanji? She said. I have to say you look much better in a woman's attire. Thank you, Your Majesty. I wasn't sure what this woman would do with me now that she had found me stealing her jewels. She knew exactly who I was from all the stories circulating about thieves who have never been caught. Please don't look so nervous. I will not let the gods harm you or your partner, if you cooperate. I couldn't believe my ears. She was giving us a way out? Just like that, it seemed we wouldn't be killed for stealing from the crown. I squinted at her closely, trying to see her clearly. She looked more familiar to me now, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I would do anything to keep Levi alive, I commented, not really sure if I should fully believe her words. Your real name is Lady Hanji Elizabeth Wolf, isn't it? The Queen asked, like she knew what my answer would be. Yes, it is. I remember you. We used to play together all the time. When I heard about your family, I had my parents rush me over there to see if you had survived, since the collectors didn't report seeing any children. I even searched through the ashes trying to find any sign of you. I was devastated, my old friend. The Queen almost cried as tears welled up in her eyes. I've missed you. I looked everywhere for you. I even had Lord Niall set you up. Please stay here with us. I can appoint you and Levi as nobles of a court. You have your title back as my lady-in-waiting. I suddenly remembered her from years long since buried in my mind. Petra! I cried as I wrapped my arms around the frame of a slender woman, and the tears spilled down my face. I'm sorry I didn't tell you where I was. I thought you were dead. You were gone for so long with illness. It's okay, she replied, reassuring me as she stroked my hair. You're safe here. I will make sure that everyone knows that you and Levi are my friends. I felt her fasten something around my neck. This belongs to you, she whispers. I found it in the ashes. My hands went to my throat, and I felt the sapphires that I knew hung around my neck. I could feel tears well up in my eyes at having a part of my former life restored to me. Thank you. You never gave up trying to find us. You were too dear to me, she replied. Now let's see if we can clear this mess up and announce you properly at the ball. Can't I go by Hannah? Petra burst out laughing. No, you be who you were born to be. No more masquerading as a male for you. Oh, but I liked it. Perhaps I will allow it sometimes. I felt a smile spread across my face as a knock came at the door. May I come in? Said a voice I would know anywhere, and my face lit up more. Yes, you may, Petra replied as she pulled me in and whispered in my ear, You will marry that man one day, even if I have to order it. I don't think that will be necessary, I reply. Levi entered the room, and I ran and hugged him, knowing that I was back where I belonged, and I could be with Levi.